We're supposed to do this from the opposite ends of the stage. This is what would be on Stargate. Keep them in separate rooms.
Where's Gigi? I thought she was coming out too.
So have they done the trivia yet? So what is the name of the Stargate in the Gould Chappa Eye? Oh, that's the answer, a Chappa Eye. Yeah, I have a learning disability. But we have information for the Commonwealth-supported students. Anybody need HECS help? You can see us afterwards. We'll be handing out pamphlets.
I have an admission to make.
So people put your hands up if you've got a question for Ben or Claudia.
I was here quite a few years ago, before we start, at New South Wales Uni. And I dropped out to pursue my career in acting. And now I'm being paid to come back. This is a really bad lesson if there are any children in the audience. But it's really nice to be back, and I am actually considering getting a BA, hence why I have the booklet in my hand. Hi, hometown. Welcome to my hometown. It's my first convention on home soil. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, technically speaking, it's my hometown too. Wait a minute, I lived in Chloe. I know every surf beach in the eastern suburbs. I know where all the rocks are. That flat rock at Bronte that you want to crash on in your mouth, I was there.
Yeah, I got bumped out of my trailer once because Ben wanted to surf and take a shower in a trailer before we started work one day. And mine had the shower that day. I remember that. Would you mind leaving your trailer because Ben needs to take a shower? What do you mean, leave the trailer?
Dad! Okay, cameras away, please, guys. Thank you.
What are we
hi.
doing? Oh, where?
I'm up here, to your right.
To my right. Oh, up there.
Hello.
Everyone
all right,
look and wave.
I'm short-sighted, so I can't really see you either.
We look great.
I had a question, and it's probably one you get asked all the time. But Stargate and Fastgate were two of my favourite shows that I watch religiously. And I was so happy when you two joined the cast. But I just wanted to ask, was the rest of the cast really accepting and warm, or did they kind of stay back and go, oh, look how it's done on this set kind of thing? If that makes sense? Like, were they really accepting, or did they kind of like, you know, stay back and give you room to move because you had your own hit show?
Well, we were using funny metaphors at breakfast to explain our experience of that. I was saying it's like with Farscape giving birth to a child and having a very specific bond from the beginning because you were there for its creation. And then coming onto Stargate, it was like getting a foster child who was about 12 years old, and it's a different set of circumstances, and you love them both equally, but it's just different. I had a great experience because I came on just to do a guest, and it was such a small, quiet episode, and Michael and I just had... What? You're a natural comedian, darling. You did nothing and they laughed. It's a gift. So yeah, my experience was amazing because I met Michael Shanks and Andy Makeda, and we just gelled, and so I was accepted, but sort of I kept surprising people because they had an expectation that when they block scenes that, oh, Vala will sit there and Cameron will sit there and blah, blah. And I'd say, why would I sit there? Why would she sit there? And they said, well, because, you know, we're going to have a meeting now with the colonel. And I'd say, but she's not in the army. She doesn't even understand about the army, so she can do whatever she wants, can't she? And they'd go, oh, yeah.
Yeah, we actually were talking about it this morning, and my comparison is only slightly different, is that we were adopted children, and they let us know that we were adopted. So if we misbehave, we got to go back to the baby factory. I'm sure, you know, you could ask Chris Judge. He would remind, you're new here. I've been here for 2.5 years. You're new. But it was, it was a great experience. They're a fun cast, but it is different. And also it's different because Farscape was shot here in Australia. Not trying to cause any divisions between Stargate and Farscape, but Farscape is an Australian show. Can I get a hell yeah? Hell yeah. That's the difference.
You're in my country now. Aussie, Aussie, Aussie. Nice.
You see, the reason I have this pamphlet is I have kids who keep talking about coming back to the University of New South Wales. Seriously.
You can come and stay with me.
And I will need the help from the Commonwealth for that.
Any more questions from the front? No? Okay. Oh, here's one. If you can keep your hands up and catch myself or Paul's eye, we'll get to you.
Hey guys, this is to both of you. Because you worked for so long together on Farscape, were you like, when you saw each other on SG1, were you like, oh cool, I'm working with each other again, or was it like, oh God, no?
They kept us apart. We were like, to continue the metaphor of children, we were like naughty kids in the back row that were separated into different classrooms. We didn't know what we'd done to deserve it. I think they were just so nervous about finding places for us in the new show that it was difficult for them, establishing two new characters in their very established show, and then also, I think they felt there was a bit of a risk in having us together, and well, I don't know why, that we would have taken it over.
No. It was as though we were purposely kept apart. You'd have to ask someone else as to whether that happened. It was probably the season 10 before we had a scene of substance after the, first, how you doing, when Vala steps through the gate. And again, another thing we were talking about this morning, so for those of you who were at breakfast, forgive us. We had a scene in I think it was the 2 or 3-parter in the middle of season 2 where Daniel is becoming Merlin, and there was this much of a page, and Claude comes to me and says, "We got a great scene together." And I look at it, and it's that big. It's literally this much of a page. But it was the first sort of emotionally charged scene that Vala and Mitchell had, where Vala's saying, "You've got to do something about this," and Mitchell gets all butch and jacks her up. Nice change of pace from Farscape, by the way. I get to jack her up, so to speak. And when we shot the scene, Andy Makita, Claude told the story much better this morning, but we shot the scene, Andy Makita, who's directing, lovely man, said, "I want to take one more take, just so that I can watch that again." Oh, yeah. But it was, we know each other pretty well. And, I'd spent a lot of time working together. And any time that I get a chance to do a scene with Claudia, or anything with Claudia, it's a real privilege and a pleasure. And it shows on camera.
We were so used to being the sort of the go-to kids for coming up with some kind of solution with the rest of the crew on Farscape, and people would just turn to us instinctively, or after a while of working with us, just to say, what are we going to do? Anyone got any ideas? And it was a pretty, open forum in that regard, because it was like a war zone on Farscape. There was so much to try and achieve, with comparatively little time, and in Australia, the one thing that we sell overseas is the fact that we can do fast turnaround television, but we had insane odds. I mean, there was the puppetry and the puppeteers, how many people that involves, additionally on set who can't be seen, people working with prosthetics and huge costumes and big adversities, and shooting in sets that, in sheds that had no air conditioning, and we would have what I described as Wookiee meltdown when someone in all the, the makeup and whatever would get overheated, and it's tough shooting here in Australia and at that pace, and so I think put us in a room together, and it's a good thing. We'll find something fun, and we were about being subversive too, because that's what I love about Aussie TV. When the Aussies take over, it's kind of like, well, what do we want to do, and let's make it differently. And that's what I always love about television. There's 13 original stories retold, they say, or however many it is. I felt like we were really reinventing that every single day together, and not being able to do that very often with Ben was a shame. But I think that also very clearly wanted to define that Vala had been marked for Daniel, and I think they had a very clear idea of that, and I never believed it, because I was like, she is the most irritating person on earth. How could anyone be attracted to her? She's just a nightmare.
But see, I had the opposite take on that. The first time first time Daniel rejected Vala, I went to the producers and said, well, Mitchell will take her. Because, let's be honest, I looked at it and I think Daniel is batting for the other team. You're in a bunker, hundreds of feet underground. Say yes! I didn't get that. It just went right by me. I looked at it and went, hey, let's go. But that's the point where the adopted kid gets sent back to the baby factory.
Hello, Ben. I know you work both here in Australia. There you go, mate. Up the top here. There you go, mate.
Oh, all the way up there.
Having worked both in Australia and in Canada, I actually asked you the same question in Burbank. You happened to mention that there's a little bit of a different style between Australians and Canadians. And since you've now got a predominantly Australian audience, I'd like to find out if you...
I believe what I said. The difference between Canadians and Australians is Australians are Canadians with attitude. Look, Canadians are incredibly polite, which you will notice Chris Judge is not Canadian. You can run them over with your car and they will apologize to you. I never noticed that in Australia. In fact, what I noticed in Australia was that, pedestrians would taunt you. Go ahead, hit me, I will kick your butt. You ever notice that? You go down Oxford Street and they stand right on the edge. It's like they're tempting you. You're coming along at 70 Ks and they're going, go ahead. Australia's just better. What? Do you have a difference between Canadians and Australians?
Well, I'm not polite either. I really speak my mind, and I've always said that was an Australian trait, but maybe I'm on my own, I don't know.
No, you're right.
I say it like it is.
Hi.
Hi.
This is a Farscape question. On the Farscape website, it says that they're going to do webisodes, and I was just wondering if you guys are going to be involved in that, or you haven't been approached yet.
The question is to Farscape webisodes. I have spoken with Brian about it. The plan to do the Farscape webisodes was to shoot them in Australia. Now, what happens with international currencies and what happens with financing is determining when the webisodes or the next incarnation will be shot. But I can't imagine that when they do the next installment of Farscape, that it won't be done in Australia. So I have spoken with Brian about it, but I haven't spoken with him in months. Have you heard anything about the webisodes?
No, I mean, they were very enthused by the reception that we got at the 10-year anniversary panel at Comic-Con last year, and and that blew us away because, I mean, the fact that it had been 10 years of anything, I mean, to be able to say that was 10 years ago, amazing. Since it had started, but the fact that there was still a fan base out there, and it shocked us because I said, just out of interest, and there was about 2,000 to 3,000 people in the auditorium, and I said, can I have a show of hands of people who've come to Farscape in the last 2 or 3 years? And it was at least 80% of the audience who raised their hands. And we've had a very difficult experience, I think, just trying to find the audience or make it clear to networks that there is an audience, because, when we were making this for Channel 9 in Australia, it wasn't on air. And
yeah, it was. It was across from the Sydney Olympics.
2000 Olympics. That's when they aired it for the first time, and they needed to fulfill an obligation to air a certain amount of episodes, and they did that while the Olympics were on. So that was disheartening, to say the least. But they just, science fiction isn't as popular here in Australia, and they were finding it difficult to find a home for it. And with just being on this panel, and someone asked the question about the webisodes, and Brian said, look, we're trying to do high production values. They're going to be shorter, obviously, than a normal episode. And that's difficult if you're going to spend the money to make it look as good as it did for 45 minutes to an hour. How do we justify doing that in a smaller format? But when we got off stage, Rockney and Brian were really excited, and they were saying, oh, it was just so well received, and people are so excited. And, I think they were reminded of the chemistry that you and I have, and I think they're really quite desperate to do it. They're just trying to find a way to, because no one's been able to find a way to make webisodes as a business model really work. So there's a lot of factors, as Ben said, financially that, need to fall into place. Fingers crossed. Hello.
Hi. Ben, when you heard that Claudia got a permanent spot on Stargate, did you happen to call up to ask her for a favor to get your spot? If so, how much does he owe you, Claudia?
I'll never tell.
I'm sorry, what was the question? No, seriously, what was the question? This is one of those classic moments that happened to me for the first 3 months that I shot on Farscape. Half the time I didn't know what anybody said. So you guys are used to hearing American accents, but other than Crocodile Dundee, we didn't get it. So somebody would say something, and I go, what? It's like, yes, he's daft. He's got a problem. You were asking, when Claude was on SG1, did I ask for a favor to get on the show?
Yep, that's right.
Oh, good. See, I actually did kind of get it. Did I ask for a favor? I knew that she had done an SG1, and when I was in talks to do the show, I was not fully aware that she was going to be back. I only became aware towards the end of it, where there was, oh, yes, well, Claudia will be here. And then I thought, oh, no. She's going to think I'm stalking her. But once I heard Claudia was on the show, I was on board. Yeah. How much do I owe you?
Hi,
I'll ask later.
Yeah.
Hi, were both of you fans of SG1 prior to starting on this series, or was it a completely new experience for you?
I was aware of it. I'd love the movie. I thought that I still maintain that in science fiction and probably across the board, that the Stargate itself is the most brilliant prop ever made. I just think it's extraordinary. The concept lent itself so beautifully to a series. I don't think I'd ever really watched the show. It was the actual episode itself, Prometheus Unbound. My agent rang me and said, we were doing ADR for Peacekeeper Wars when it came up, and I thought, I just want to take a break for a while. I'd had to delay my honeymoon in order to do Peacekeeper Wars, and I just wanted a bit of a break. And my agent said, look, this has come through. It's an offer. You don't have to audition. What do you think? And I read the episode, and I thought it was so much fun. I said, how can I really refuse? So I was aware of it, and it was definitely on my radar, and I knew Michael and Chris and Richard's faces, obviously, and Amanda's, but I just... I also say that those who work in television don't have time to watch it. So while we were making Farscape, there was no time for me at all to sit down and actually get hooked on anything. But I certainly schooled up once I started.
In the world of cross-show feuds and there was a common thinking when Farscape was canceled that it had been canceled because of Stargate. Because Stargate came on in the U.S. onto Sci-Fi Channel in the last season or two that Farscape was on. So, you have fandom feuds which go on, apparently. And so I was aware of Stargate. I knew that it had been going on, but I was in Australia and I wasn't really watching because I was working. But I did check it out when I went back. And what I saw was really good. I saw some episodes that I just thought, man, that's good TV. I think I saw Heroes, part 1 and 2. Was almost, I think, in that, and then I watched some stuff which was early season stuff that I catch stripped out, and saw, things like The Torment of Tantalus and episodes like that I had seen. I thought, that's really good. So I felt good about the show when they asked me to consider it coming on. It sounds kind of vain, doesn't it? Asked me to. I had met Brad Wright, the creator, and Joe Malazzi, producer. I had met Michael on a plane, so I had a good feeling about everybody was up there. And I knew that Claudia had a great time working with Mike and had spoken very highly of everyone up there. So as soon as we got into talks about going on, I started watching more of the show. And then before I actually went on the show, I watched all 8 seasons of SG-1 before I started work. It
freaked the producers out.
Yeah. Well, it freaked my family out because I did it in 2 weeks. To this day, Chris Judge asks me what happened in season 4.
Now we've got a special addition to our talk. Ladies and gentlemen, Gigi Edgley.
Hi, guys. Hi. How's it going? We're back. Is everyone having a good time? I'm sorry I'm a bit late. I was just rescuing some people outside. There was a few cardiac arrests I had to attend to because they just had their photo op with Ben and Claude, so. Oh, is it something I said?
Guys, if you've got questions, throw your hands up again.
Hi guys, up here in the middle, Farscape rocks. Claudia, my guys think you're hot. I like the guys personally. Farscape was great, Stargate was great as well. You guys are so different in both of those episodes, in both series. Which series did you like doing better? Like the sexy vamp or the soldier and you? And, what is your best episode in that series? Your best moments?
Are you saying which show did we prefer doing?
Yeah, well, not which show did you prefer doing. Did you have fun in, but which episodes did you like? Which was your best moments in both episodes, yes.
My favourite, I got to tell you, was probably the very first one that I did, because I had no idea what I was doing. So I did this crazy pose and I did these crazy things and established this really crazy character that I didn't think I'd have to do for 4 years. And then I was stuck like this for 4 years. And the other one I had an awesome time on was John Quixote, because I realised Ben is really mad because he wrote that. I always thought he was straight and, really serious, and then I read his script and I'm like, holy buckets.
All right, cameras away again, guys. Thank you.
Can I help you find a place to leave your thought?
Yeah, John Quixote, which is the second episode that I wrote, for anyone from Stargate, you probably shouldn't watch it. It's the anti-Stargate of all Farscape episodes. It was interesting when I handed the script in and then it got distributed. The first question asked by most people was, "What have you been smoking?" No, nothing, man. It's just what I happened to think of that day. I really enjoyed our big episodes, but I also love the first Earth episode. The Crichton Aaron episodes where they would come to that critical point and you have those very domestic type scenes. I love that because day to day it was just way too much fun. You know, whether we were in dune buggies out in the sands or you know, just showing up on set and going, wow, look at that. So it was when I actually got into street clothes, it felt so different as opposed to leather. That was a special event. So I kind of like the Earth episodes a lot.
Yeah, I certainly there were never any complaints from me and Gigi about Ben wearing leather all the time. I'm the same. I loved the 2-parters, the 3-parters. Those arcs meant that they were throwing more money in. The scale just became more epic. We'd never really done anything like that in Australian television before, and we felt like we were making sort of feature films. PK Tech Girl was a big episode for me. I sort of found that I was kind of realizing that Sigourney Weaver, Linda Hamilton-esque dream of being this sort of tough soldier girl in a great location we shot at the refineries down in sort of bottom of Roselle.
Power station.
Yeah, power station, that's right. And I love doing the sand dune sequences, just being out doing. I always say that the film industry or the entertainment business is like, you know, you get paid to do things that would otherwise be illegal, and we were blowing half the sand dunes up with these huge explosives, fanging around in these dune buggies, and it was just the freedom of it and the fun and the sense of play. It was just incredible. And then because, I mean, Ben and I are big softies, we're real romantics, and so whenever we got an opportunity to do something really achingly romantic, it was just such fun to sort of, we knew we were going to torture you guys with the stuff that we were doing. Like the coin toss scene that we did. Oh, that was quite epic, just the filming of it, because it took days for David Kemper to work out how he was going to end the episode. And he said, I know where it needs to end, I know that Erin needs to leave, but I just can't imagine in Crichton's position how I would ever let her go. If I felt the way I did about her, how would I ever let her go? And I said, well, romance, really, it's about fate, isn't it? So let's leave it up to chance. And we talked about it a lot, and the crew came down and watched us film the scene because it was the last scene that we filmed of the season, and it felt like theatre again. And so those moments were really, really precious.
Guys, my question's directed to Ben, but it directly affects Claudia and Gigi. Ben, when you work with two hot Australian actresses...
We'll pay you later.
When you work with two very hot...
Well played.
Smart man.
Two very hot Australian actresses, does that cause any dramas at home with your partners or your kids? Because you probably worked with actresses before, but you've never worked with two hot Australian actresses. Any problems?
Yeah, Ben, any problems?
Good luck.
My missus is an actress, and she was on the show as 4 different characters. So she basically was coming in to check up on me. She went to the executive producer, said, you have to give me a job because I need to see what my husband's doing at work. It's a very odd kind of separation between the work and home. There are episodes that I don't think have ever aired in my home. There are episodes that I don't think the script ever made it to my home. Because you want to protect the people at home. It's a weird, Claude said you get to do things that are illegal. Well, some days you're doing things that, are immoral. Forget the legalities of it, I'm going to have the church coming down on me. I remember the first time my grandmother ever saw me kissing someone on screen. And I got a phone call. I was in Los Angeles. And she said, Ben, you're a married man. You'll not be kissing that girl on camera. She was a West Tennessee Bible Baptist hatchet-wielding grandmother, and she laid it down to me. And so, it's not just my wife that I have to protect. I have to protect my mother and my grandmother and other sensibilities. But, Damn is a good day at work. And I think that Claudia should perhaps tell the story of the first scene that her fiance ever saw shot.
Yeah, I met him while I was filming the last seasons of Farscape, just after 9/11, actually. And then he came, the first time he came to set to pick me up was the day that Ben was in drag. So I don't think
no worries there, he was comfortable.
He didn't feel particularly threatened. And then the first time he came to set, the first and only time he ever came to set was the day that we were filming the scene where Crichton proposes to Aaron on the boat out in the water. So he watched us kissing and went, "That sucked." Thanks. Yeah, can't wait to come to your work again. That was awesome. Thanks a lot.
I've got a question just in the middle here for the three of you. Outside of work, what inspires you? Okay. Where do you draw your inspiration from outside of your work?
Outside of work?
Do you have a life outside of work?
I'm an empty shell. We'll go from this way to this way.
I always like the story how your son always thought you were an astronaut. Because it's hard to explain to people that, you're an actor playing a role and this and that. And I think outside of work, the more you can do to keep yourself attached to reality, the better. I do a lot of yoga and a lot of chilling at the beach, but work really is all-consuming, isn't it? Once you fall into a role, it becomes everything you eat, breathe, live, and goodness knows what else. So yeah.
I mean, when I'm working, I've really come to the conclusion now, and this is what's hard for me when I'm not working. It's incredibly stimulating to be on a set, and I'm a real adrenaline junkie, really. And Farscape, we couldn't have been placed, or I couldn't have been placed, I should speak for myself, in a better environment because every day was so different, and the pressure was immense, and we were talking about this before to Gigi, that you couldn't have been trained better as an actor on a show than with Farscape because there wasn't a single element of filmmaking, really, that we weren't exposed to. But I've come to the conclusion that I really draw my inspiration from the group, and I'm not that inspired when I'm by myself. I can read books if I ever had the time. I mean, I'm reading one at the moment because I don't have my kids traveling with me. But it's when I'm around other people, that collective energy to me, really there's nothing more inspiring. Being around other actors and watching their process and how diligent they are and the fact that they don't want to leave until they know they've made something work, and they fight to make the scene work, and everyone always brings something so different in to a set. They've had a completely different background in their lives. I just draw so much, I get so much energy and inspiration from people around me when I'm on set. And then I look for that. I look, yes, to stay grounded, I agree with Gigi, in my life as much as possible. And the one thing that has changed now, becoming, marrying and having children especially, my work is different. I mean, I'm just a different person. I think differently about things, and I've said this before, that once you become a parent, a mother especially, you just instantly start feeling the world's pain. So you just can't hear the news anymore. Everything just hurts so much more because you've got your own children and you worry for them. And so, for me, I get so much inspiration from my children, how they make me feel and how I now respond and think to the world around me.
I think there's a really good quote that someone said that on your deathbed, no one ever said, "I wish I'd spent more time at work." It's only partly true. In as much as that when a job is really good, when a show is so much fun, it is all consuming. But it's very important to me to make sure that I've still got that foot over there in reality. And my reality is that I'm a dad, that I'm a husband, that I'm a member of a community where I live when I'm not jetting off to Australia or to Canada. When I was working on Stargate, I was flying home on the weekends, every weekend that I could get away, to be 24 hours with my family, just to see their faces, just to touch base, to make sure that, you know, they knew I was alive, and just not the astronaut on TV. So, you know, as far as inspiration, you know, I read, I go to movies, I watch TV, but the biggest, most consuming things that I do right now is I coach. I'm coaching pole vaulting.
I thought you said something else then. I'm coaching pole.
I know. You know, I coach pole vault. I coach high school pole vaulting, which, you know, fills up my afternoons, and I have a whole bunch of high school girls that vault.
Does that cause cause problems at home?
No. Although Chris Judge came around the other day to watch the pole vaulting, he said, "Ben, this is a problem." I couldn't do this. I said, "No, you better not. Get out of here." So, you know, it's, you know, so you get involved in the community, and, you know, it's, people have asked, are you comfortable with conventions? Which I guess is a kind of work in a way. But no, I'm not, because suddenly you have all these people looking and listening, which they don't do at home at all. But, you know, once you're done, you go home and it's clean the gutters, fix the plumbing, do all the normal things, and that's where your real life is. And so I guess if there's inspiration to be drawn, it's to be drawn from real life, from your family, your friends, your community. That's where I try to get most of it from, and it is the most important thing to me.
I got to say that definitely doing Farscape for 4.5 years, the lines definitely blurred, because they were long days, weren't they? Like really long days and crazy stunts and crazy scenes. And I know a lot of the aliens on the show, we all had identity problems. We would have 6 identity crises a day, because every time you look in the mirror, you're an alien. It's really, really peculiar, because you wake up at 4 or 5 in the morning and you don't really look at yourself much, because you're going to be thrown into a makeup chair, and you sit in the chair and you're half asleep, and then all of a sudden you're this creature. And then for 12 to 14 to however many hours a day, every time you see yourself in a reflection or anything, and people talk to you differently as well, because they see this freaky deaky thing in front of them. So it was definitely bizarre living in space for 4.5 years. Definitely. So anything that was real in the real world was very good. It was like very surreal, running from fireballs and exploding things and making love to your partner's son and all this kind of crazy stuff. Right? And then you have to come home and put out the trash. And you're like, huh? Very, very weird.
Just as a side note, for, you know, this is the largest number of people that I have seen in Australia that even know about the show.
Thank you.
I lived here. In 4.5 years, I had 2 people go, "Hey, are you that dude?" Or that guy, mate. In 4.5 years, 2 people. So it's really a mind trip to suddenly see people, "Hi, guys."
Sure, I'll go. My bad. Sorry.
Bye, Gigi. I recognize that.
This is a Stargate question for Ben. When you worked at Stargate, did you feel like you were in the shadow of Richard Dean?
Out of the mouths of babes.
Someone prompt you to ask that question? You've been on the internet, haven't you?
Well, you did a good job.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, you know, when I signed on, it I guess I wasn't smart enough to think about it. Then I started reading a little bit on the internet, and then I began to worry. Who is this guy? Where is our RDA? And I actually called Rick before I went on the show. I can call him Rick. Yeah, I called him up and said, so what's it like up there? He goes, what do you mean? But we had a conversation about the set and everything else. And the fact of the matter is that SG1 is Richard Dean Anderson's show. For 8 years, his name is above the titles, and you can't replace that. You're never going to replace that. You're never going to try to even shift that character or that man aside, and I never made an attempt to do so. My main concern in going in was in fitting in with the cast and the crew and the writers and directors and, seeing where it led me as opposed to where I thought I could possibly lead the show. Because those are big, big boots to step into. Luckily, I wear a size 12 Australian. Steel cap Blunny. So, it's a really good question. But I never even tried to fill his shoes. So that's for someone else to answer. I think you can answer that with your own opinion.
Some of the best advice about acting someone ever gave me was that you're only in a race with yourself. And it's a really competitive, or it can be viewed to be a very competitive business, and a lot of people sort of set you up as an actor to feel as if you should feel that you're in competition with other people, but that's crazy making. And it's actually a really nice perspective to have once you really understand it, that it's just about you and what you hope you can bring to something, and once you shut out all the noise about other people and the idea of competition in any way, it certainly helps with auditions too.
Yeah, because look, what we do is storytelling. We're part of a storytelling process. We're just one part of it. There's the words, there's the camera, there's all the technical stuff. And then there's the most critical and important issue, which is, other than the story, is the audience. And what we do for an audience. We do to communicate. And sometimes we succeed to a greater or lesser degree. But, if you're focused on the story and you're focused on getting that story to the audience, it doesn't matter who's in the boots. And that's, to me, has always been the most important thing. What is the story? What is the story? What is the story? So, there you go.
This is for Ben and Claudia. Are you going to do any new shows?
Oh, what?
Any new shows?
Any new shows?
I hope so.
We'll see.
Like,
because Gigi can answer that question. Gigi, what are you doing?
Well, my name's Gigi, and I'm a Scorpion, and I'm 16 years old, and I'm working on Rescue Special Ops at the moment, which is just a delight. And it's kind of like Farscape, but I'm not an alien. I still get to run and throw myself off buildings and out of choppers and hang off people and rescue people and it's kind of like the first shot that I did was actually on the top of Centrepoint, and I'm like, this is great, because I always wanted to do the skywalk, and now I got to do it for free. And I'm getting paid. And so we were up there, and they had a chopper was circling the Centrepoint, Sydney Tower, and we're walking along, and we have to do this kind of fight scene and stuff. I don't know if you guys saw it, and I end up going over Centrepoint. And as I'm walking out, and I'd been in LA for 3 years and done a couple of gigs here and there, but this is my first sort of leading lady role, and I thought, this is so cool. Dreams really do come true if you hold tight and you wait for the right job that your heart's really passionate about. And that's one other thing I think that's really important too, is that quite often when actors are in their quiet time, it's not necessarily that they're not getting the offers, it's not necessarily the offers that they want. So I think it's very important to stay true to yourself. So that was a really awesome thing to have my first shot of Rescue dangling off the side of Centrepoint. And I thought, please don't let this be like Farscape, where will she survive, will she not? I'm not letting go. So yeah, that's my baby at the moment. They just picked up series 2, so we've been in our second week of shooting.
I'm trying to work out what I want to do. It's kind of like I have to sort of press a reset button after having kids, and I don't want to work the same hours anymore. So that probably takes me out of the race to play a leading lady in TV right now. I'm trained to do it, but I want to be home for bath time, so at least. So what I'm trying to do now, I've talked about it at other conventions, is just the climate has changed as well in the industry, and a lot of the time, I mean, when I started, it was the only way to be an actor is to, do auditions, and you'll land a job and then, get another one and on you go. And that happened for the first half of my career, but now I've come out the other side, and most sort of middle-class actors are not getting work unless they're actively creating the opportunities for themselves. So writing it, directing it, getting into things, aspects of filmmaking on the other side of the camera, and if they want to still act, finding ways to be very proactive about their next job. So I'm sort of doing that, but I've also got heavily into improvisational theatre, so that's what I'm doing in Los Angeles now, and I just did a show on the weekend and then got on a plane to come here. And I'm really, it's very new to me. I really enjoy it. I'm learning a lot. I kind of wish I'd got into it a lot earlier. And just sort of, I'm trying to work out how on earth I can stay in this business that I'm so passionate about, but still, be very, very hands-on with my kids. So I've done a couple of movies in the last year, and one will be released next year. One is, they're editing it now. And I do a lot of voice work in the meantime, and I'm just trying to strategically work out how I can stay in the game without losing so much sleep.
I'm looking for work. I hear there might be a Stargate movie. Someone move that along, please. No, I'm doing what actors do. I am looking for work. There was probably a period immediately after Stargate finished where I'd done 7 out of 8 years doing series work. And I know it's not going down a coal mine, and it's not like a real job, but 70 hours between Monday and Friday, 70-hour work week, is tiring, even if you're just having to stand around and look pretty. Because you get progressively less pretty with every hour. So I'm auditioning and sort of figuring that out again, which is an interesting process, because you go from working on a set where you're very important. When you're on a TV show, you're very important. Because if you happen to fall over and can't get up, they're going to lose money. It's not that they love you, but they need you and they hate you for it. But seriously, they'll do anything to prop you up and keep you going. Once you're not on a show, you're not important anymore. You're another actor that's out of work. So you go from being very important to being very unimportant. And auditioning is nothing but possibility, like so many things in life. Just, it's a possibility. This could happen. And there are so many people aggressively pursuing it. You go into the room and you're sitting there. And, Claudia was talking about that competition, acting as a competition. Auditioning is the one place where it really is a competition. And women are terrible to each other. Man, it's like a primp off in there, You go, which one's going to be more beautiful than the other one? Boy, they're really working each other. They're talking about their diets. Oh my God, I can't listen. Because that'd be like Chris Judge and I talking about our diets. So, yeah, I'm auditioning and finding that it's really interesting and kind of perversely enjoyable to audition, where you go in and you do your thing and you go, there's my thing. I had fun. I hope it was good for you. And then you go home and they don't call. It's a perpetual dating service. I've always said casting directors should run dating services because, if you're really looking for someone to date, go to some casting office somewhere. It's nuts.
I describe the industry as being like my relationship to it or with it as being like a lover that is so incredible that you're prepared to put up with all the periods where you don't hear from him, because the times when you finally do see him are so exquisite that you're prepared to put up with all of the bits in between. And then when he finally does call, you're told more and more increasingly that he's left you for a blonde who's a lot younger.
Not true. I am feeling so battered. I need some help.
Well, sorry guys, that's all we have time for. Big round of applause for Claudia, Ben and Gigi!
Good night, Australia.
You guys were great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.